I'd like to share with you a few reflections on my 4 years here at Commonwealth. And in particular, I'd like to talk about the aspects of the education, I guess, the academics here, that are some, I think, of the really unique things about this school that make it such a great place to be. In addition to the wonderful community here, as Denny mentioned. And I think some classes I've taken here have had a great impact on me, and I'd just like to share about those briefly. So throughout my time here, almost 4 years, I've been encouraged and even sometimes forced to undertake a pretty wide range of academic pursuits because the school has a lot of core requirements. As a result, I've ended up challenging my limits and expectations, and I've grown a lot as a result of that. As a first example, my freshman year geometry class. When I was in middle school, I'd never really thought of myself much as a math person. I'd always struggled with doing calculations and crunching numbers. And I was pretty intimidated by the textbook that we were using for this geometry course, written by Mr. Riaki. It was pretty intimidating, definitely the most rigorous math textbook that I'd seen up until that point. And I also didn't think I'd find geometry very interesting, and I didn't think I'd have what it took to make it through the class. But I was definitely wrong on both counts. With the help of some really excellent instruction from Mr. Sherry and Mr. Paul, I was able not just to get through the class, but also to really fall in love with it. The logical structure of axiomatic systems and formal proofs fascinated me, and I came to love the feeling of completing a watertight proof and resting on the knowledge that for homework, I hadn't just juggled a few numbers and solved a problem, but I'd really established the proof of a geometric fact. Geometry was not the only time that Commonwealth's required courses forced me to push my limits and discover new sides of myself that I otherwise would never have unearthed. It also happened in the arts. Larry Geffen's drawing and painting class that I took freshman year and that I'm taking again this year really gave me a greater appreciation for and enjoyment of the visual arts, which is something I'd never really had much of any experience with and was not very good at. But over the course of that year, I came to like it so much that as I said, I'm taking it again. The opportunities that class gave me and is giving me to experiment with new artistic media, everything from the simple graphite pencil to Conti crayon to watercolor that I'm working with now, and to work on a piece over time as it develops into a final product. For instance, I spent a lot of time the second half of my freshman year working on a painting of binder clips, which over time became a lot more complete and interesting than I thought it would be at first. It started out basically as a kind of experiment. Even just to have conversations with Larry Geffen as I work up in the art room, all of these are experiences that I've really come to treasure, but that I would never have gotten to know if Commonwealth's arts requirement hadn't pushed me to it. In performing arts, similarly, taking orchestra has helped me become a better musician, and it's also opened my eyes to all kinds of new and interesting types of music, ranging from classical period composers to Scott Joplin to a modern minimalist piece that we did once that was totally different in form and sound from anything I'd ever heard before. Orchestra also gave me a first taste of ensemble playing. That also, something that I'd never really done before, but which I came to like so much that I took the experience further and did summer programs, which were very meaningful experiences that I would never have done had Commonwealth's orchestra not gotten me started down that road. The enjoyment that I got from playing and interacting musically with my friends in the orchestra here was what drove me to participate in the South Shore Conservatory's summer music program, and then the band program at Interlochen Summer Arts Camp. Both unforgettable experiences that challenged me even further musically and really changed my life. But it wasn't just the courses that I was required to take here that ended up mattering the most. They forced me to reach outside my comfort zone and expand into interests that I didn't know I had. But from sophomore year on, I also took the opportunity to take some elective classes that allowed me to explore even further interests that I already knew I had, or thought I had, in greater depth. For example, I've been interested in computers since probably, I don't know, 5th grade or something like that. And taking a computer science course with Ms. Raisin it really helped me make a transition from this kind of disorganized experimenting and playing around that self-teaching that I had done up until that point, to a more disciplined, more rigorous, and ultimately more fulfilling study of the science of computers. Learning new algorithms, advanced features of the Java language that I'd never encountered before, and even some basic computational theory that placed everything that we were doing in a more formal context. Thus, the computers elective allowed me to pursue one of my interests in a more disciplined way, illuminating even more clearly the reasons why I was so drawn to it in the first place, the logical structures of computer programs and the interaction between man and machine that it represented. In a similar vein, this year I'm taking Mr. Riahi's Fundamentals of Quantum Mechanics elective, which has just been a wonderful look into the physics governing the behaviors of very small waves and particles that can be really counterintuitive, but also quite fascinating, which was a really fresh departure from what we usually do here in science courses, because the math underlying quantum mechanics can get pretty complex. Most of the other classes here are confined to classical physics. But it was quite refreshing and something totally new to look beyond that context into the state of a more modern understanding of physics, and to get some perspective on the still unanswered questions that physicists struggle with today, to begin to struggle with those a little bit ourselves. But another really defining experience that also grew out of an academic class year was my Spanish class's trip to Peru during the summer after my sophomore year. I had taken 2 years of Spanish language classes, one of which I spent a lot of time studying Peruvian literature and culture in preparation for the trip. But nothing could really prepare me for the experience of being in a different country, on a different continent. Traveling across Peru, eating the local food, talking with my friends and with Peruvians in Spanish, and getting to experience Peru's natural wonders, culminating in a visit to Machu Picchu, which was absolutely breathtaking and incredible. They all reaffirmed to me just how valuable it was to take a foreign language. As part of this trip, I also formed and reinforced lasting relationships with a lot of my classmates, getting to live and share the adventure with them, from the fun of sliding down some eroded rocks near one of the Inca sites that we visited, to the altitude sickness we all struggled with when we arrived in Cusco, to the awe that we all experienced as the mountain mists parted and we saw the city of Machu Picchu over the mountainside. It was a wonderful thing, and I won't forget it any more than I will the friends that I shared it with. My heartfelt thanks go out to Monica Schilder, who taught me Spanish for 2 years and who put a lot of energy and time into organizing the trip, I should say, every year. It was one of the defining experiences, definitely, of my years here, and one that wouldn't have happened without you. What I've tried to convey in these remarks is that Commonwealth has made a wide range of great things possible for me, many of which I didn't even know I could do or wanted to do. I think that some of that came from the school. It has some incredible teachers who are amazing, dedicated to the students they teach and to their work. Small class sizes, an administration that really cares about the well-being of the students here. And a community that I've always found, at least, is strong and supportive, even in tough times. But I think some attributes that made this possible came from within me, but were cultivated by the experience of going to school here. While here, I've really learned how to be more resilient, how to gain a stronger work ethic, to work without being discouraged through confusion and difficulty. I've learned not to be too proud to ask for help or meet with teachers. In calculus, junior year, for instance, I often felt like I was struggling, and I met with Mr. Sherry on more than one occasion up in his 5th floor office to discuss problems or concepts that were confusing to me. And no matter how hopeless it sometimes seemed to me to be, with a little bit of guidance, I would always understand my mistakes. The help that I needed to get was there. I just needed not to be afraid to ask for it. And that's another great gift that I've been given by this school, and I'm immensely grateful for it. In conclusion, I guess, I think, reflecting on my time here, high school should be about getting a foundation in a wide variety of disciplines in order to try to explore and find out what you like, what you'd like to do with your life. Learn how to struggle with what you don't like or what you have a harder time with, and ultimately to be a good citizen of the world with a base of knowledge that will help you as a member of this democratic society that we live in. With this goal in mind as a guiding aim of high school, I would be hard-pressed to imagine a better, more complete experience than I got here at Commonwealth. Thank you.